What's up, boxing fans? Gilberto Torres Jr. with Torres Boxing, and I hope you're having a great day. It's Sunday, and it's a hot day here in Georgia, but wherever you are, I hope you're having a good one. And I want to talk a little bit about Saul Canelo Alvarez's next opponent that has yet to be announced. We don't know, but supposedly there's a list of candidates that are out there in the running to get that big money fight, that high-profile fight against the unified middleweight champ Canelo Alvarez. And amongst those names are a proposed trilogy with Gennady Golovkin, a fight with Jaime Munguia, the WBO junior middleweight champion, a move up to 175 pounds at light heavyweight against Sergey Kovalev, the WBO champion in that division, or Callum Smith, the WBA Super World Middleweight Champion at 168 pounds, a division that Canelo last competed in when he fought Rocky Fielding to earn the secondary version of the WBA belt back in December of last year on his DAZN debut. So it's July 7th, and it's about that time that we should be getting some sort of confirmation on who he's going to fight next. We're a little over 2 months away from that September 14th date that Canelo and team have said they already have reserved for him to fight. Again, he's fighting 2 times a year now, and the first one usually comes around May, around Cinco de Mayo weekend. So that already has come and passed. He last defeated Danny Jacobs, and now he's on to his second fight, which again is in September 14. Now the question is, who is he going to fight next? And my personal opinion, my preference is always for him to go ahead and lock horns for the third time in a trilogy with Gennady Triple G Golovkin. I just feel that fight needs to happen sooner rather than later for different reasons. Of course, Gennady Golovkin is not getting any younger. He finds himself in the last stretch of his career. He's 37 years old. He's just signed a very lucrative deal with DAZN with the assumption that he would get that Canelo fight. And many people believe that that's the reason that he signed on with DAZN, because he's chasing that third fight with Canelo. The two men have already fought 24 rounds of action. Their first fight was very controversial, a fight in which many saw Gennady Golovkin winning decisively. However, that fight was rendered a draw. The second one, a little less controversial. We saw Golovkin being backed up by Canelo Alvarez, but still having a fantastic jab, boxing more than he did in the first fight. But that's a fight that he lost by majority decision. Some people believe that he won, others believe that Canelo won, and others believe that this was the legitimate draw, that this was, if you're going to give a draw to Golovkin and Canelo, then this would have been the fight to give them that draw, because it was that close and competitive of a fight. So with that being said, that a third fight sounds only logical to be the next step. Why? Because this rivalry that has been going on for almost a few years now needs a conclusive ending. It needs that definitive end, be it Canelo winning or Golovkin winning. But a third fight only seems logical. And again, Golovkin's not getting any younger. And I know that Canelo isn't either, but Canelo's in the prime of his career. He's 28 years old. He's got plenty more years left in the tank. He's got a lot more bigger fights ahead of him. Golovkin, he said it himself that this could very well be the last stretch, the last run of his illustrious career. So why not make this fight? These two careers are intertwined. You cannot mention Gennady Golovkin without mentioning Canelo Alvarez, and vice versa. These guys are just intertwined in their careers, almost like Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, almost like Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather. That third fight needs to happen, and that's why I would prefer for that fight to happen next. But of course, there's some tough parts, some big hurdles to get over. There's a couple stories coming out from the discussions of a potential trilogy between these two, and there seems to be barriers for that are keeping that fight from happening next. And some of those are that Golovkin does not want to fight in Las Vegas again. He does feel like he was robbed, that the judges were not favorable in that fight, that it wasn't a level playing field for him and Canelo, that it was more that everything in that promotion and that surrounding that fight, the judging, everything was leaned in Canelo's favor. And that's why that one of the biggest points right now that Golovkin is making is that he does not want to fight in Las Vegas. He wants to take the fight to New York. He wants to take it somewhere else outside of Las Vegas. So and then Canelo and team, they're adamant about fighting in Vegas. That's where they fight. That's where the money's at for them. And so that's one big hurdle. And another one is, and this one's a little bit more personal, is the belief in that, people within Canelo's camp are saying that Canelo really does not like Golovkin, and that dislike for him came about from their second meeting and the build up to that second meeting, when of course Canelo was tested positive for clenbuterol and caused the first date for their rematch to be postponed and pushed back. And there was a lot of heated things that were said between both sides, and Golovkin really said some things that went against Canelo. Called him a cheater, implied that he was on something, and just said a lot of things that just came from his heart, and he was upset about the whole situation. Thought that it was very unprofessional for him to say that. And apparently Canelo took that to heart, and one of the reasons that the fight is not happening is because Canelo does not want to give Golovkin the pleasure of getting another major payday from fighting him. Canelo knows that anybody who fights him may not be making what he's making, but they are going to be making a substantial amount of money at his expense, and that Canelo's dislike for Golovkin is causing him to not want to fight him, so that he does not get that major payday from a Canelo fight. So there seems to be some animosity between both sides, a lot of things going on that may make this a difficult fight, although I want to see it happen ASAP. The animosity between both sides really makes it difficult to actually see that fight from happening, at least in September. There's talk about it maybe happening next May, around Cinco de Mayo. So honestly, I wish I could say that this fight looks like it's gonna be a 90% chance of happening, or even more than 50%. It seems that it's less likely that he faces Golovkin this September. So we'll see what happens, but that's my preferred. That's why I wanted to start off with Golovkin, because that's the preferred fight that I would want to see in September for both guys. Now, the other name that's being brought about is Callum Smith. Callum Smith was kind of one of those names that was being mentioned in the beginning and has been mentioned since Canelo went up to 168 pounds to beat Rocky Fielding. Callum Smith is a 168 pounder, holds the the super version of the title that Canelo got from Fielding. Of course, the WBA has the super and the regular version belts, and the legitimate world championship has always been the super version of the belt, and that's the one that Callum Smith holds. Now, Callum Smith is an undefeated world champion. He's 26-0 with 19 knockouts, so he's got a 73% knockout ratio. So he's proven that he can really fight. He's comfortable at that weight, and so this is a very dangerous opponent, in my opinion, if Canelo were to make the move up to 168 pounds again. Callum Smith is not a Rocky Fielding, with all due respect. Callum Smith is a cut above Fielding, and being that he's actually a natural at his weight, that could seriously present some problems for Canelo Alvarez. And not only that, but he also has some physical attributes that make him a bigger threat for Canelo. He's 6'3". He's got a 78-inch reach advantage, while Canelo is 5'8" with a 78.5-inch reach. So this is really a tough fight in my opinion, because Callum Smith is in his prime. He's 29 years of age. He's undefeated, and he's a good fighter in his weight. So I don't know if this one will happen. It does not carry that name, that big name appeal as a Golovkin trilogy would. So I'm not so sure if this happens. But if it does happen, look, if Canelo does not take a fight with Golovkin, but he faces Callum Smith, then I know that I would still prefer that Golovkin trilogy, but that this is not a bad fight just because of who Callum Smith is, the threat that he presents, the fact that he's a natural 168 pounder, and his physical attributes could present problems if he boxes Canelo and keeps him at bay. So we'll see if that's a possibility. You also have the name of Jaime Munguia that has been brought about more recently. Jaime Munguia is a big junior middleweight. He's the holder of the World Boxing Organization super welterweight title, so he's a world champion. Of course, he defeated a smaller man in Saddam Ali back in May of 2018 of last year. But Munguia is still young, in my opinion, and with all due respect, I still think he's green. He's 22. He's still learning, and in his last few fights, he has been somewhat exposed, and not in a bad way. Like I said, the spotlight has been put on Munguia early on in his career. He's young, and he's making some waves. Ever since he was going to be the replacement for Canelo to face Gennady Golovkin last year, but then he was denied that opportunity. Since then, the name Munguia has been mentioned more often, and people are, well, who is this guy? And so a lot of hype has been brought on him prematurely, and he's still learning. And people, who criticize him, he didn't look good, in his last fights. I don't believe that same criticism would be there had that hype not been brought about him prematurely. He would just be going about his business, learning, winning tough fights, but still learning from them, getting experience. But because there's a microscope now on Jaime Munguia, there's a high expectation of him looking good. People believe that he should be looking good, but at the end of the day, he's still learning. He's still developing as a fighter, and I do see him as a big, great action fighter in the future. Now, this is a name that has been brought about. His team have said that if that fight presents itself, that they're gonna take it, because these sort of opportunities don't come about every day. Zanford Promotions said that these type of trains do not pass that often, and they're once in a lifetime opportunities to get a big fight, and so that they would not reject this fight if it was offered to them. So Munguia very well could get that opportunity. This is, in my opinion, a fight that favors Canelo. Jaime Munguia, again, he's a big 154 pounder. Looks like he may be having some trouble making that weight. He's talked about moving up soon, so he could very well be debuting at 160 very soon. But again, it would be a debut of sorts, because if it's his next fight, then it would be his first time competing at that weight. So it's a fight where Canelo's more comfortable at 160, has a lot more experience than Munguia, has fought world-class opposition. Munguia, on the other hand, has fought opponents in which he was expected to defeat rather easily or more impressively, but has had a harder time with them than what people expected him to have. That's why I do favor Canelo in this fight. I don't like this fight, but if it's Munguia that is advocating for this fight, if it's Munguia that's asking his team, let me get this fight, then I really can't hate on him, because he's daring to be great. And I think that's a pretty cool thing that you see in a fighter, when they're daring to be great, when they are willingly taking a risk, but they really believe in themselves that they can win, and they really want to test themselves. And if that's Munguia in this case, then I can't fault him for that. And the fact that he's a big guy, maybe filling out to 160 pounds could actually benefit him. Maybe can return that power to him that he hasn't been getting those knockouts in these last two fights. Maybe the move up will help him. He's proven to have a very sturdy chin, so his action-packed style coming forward could present some problems to the smaller man Canelo. So that's a possibility. And then the last candidate in the race is none other than Sergey Kovalev, the Crusher, the WBO light heavyweight champion of the world. Kovalev is 36 years old. He's very well in the twilight of his career. He last fought in February of this year when he avenged his knockout loss to Eleider Alvarez by comfortably winning by unanimous decision, regaining the WBO light heavyweight championship. And this is a fight that I feel could be the most dangerous fight for Canelo Alvarez. Why? Because this would mean that he moves up by 2 weight divisions. From 160 to 175, that's a 15-pound jump. You know, how will Canelo operate with that much added weight on him? Kovalev has been fighting in this division for a long time, since the beginning of his career back in 2009. 10 years at 175 pounds. He's a natural light heavyweight, a big puncher, has still proven to have knockout power. The only issue now is that he's getting a little bit older. But in his last fight with Eleider Alvarez, I saw something that I really liked, and that's the fact that, he does not look shot. He does not look like a faded fighter. He just looks like he's an older fighter, and an older fighter that has still retained some of his physical abilities enough to help him win fights. You know, he looked more strategic in his last fight against Eleider Alvarez. Only exploded when needed to. He only let his hands go when he needed to let his hands go, and then was methodical in his approach to that fight. I see a Kovalev that's not as I guess he's not as aggressive as he once was, but he can still be aggressive when the need arises. But he also uses much more of his experience in his fights. And of course, I know that really that view, we only got it from his last fight, but I like that fight. He went the distance and won a comfortable unanimous decision, and he looked very good. He looked like an older veteran, a ring general. And if Canelo moves up in weight, then I think this would be his biggest threat today, just because this is a big guy, and he's moving up 2 weight. So who knows? Who knows if this is going to happen? Again, I do prefer that Golovkin trilogy, but fights against, the Munguia one, I think, and I feel like that's the one I at least want to see, just because of the experience difference in there. But the Callum Smith, Sergey Kovalev, I think are not that bad of a replacement for that Gennady trilogy. One name I was forgetting though, and it just came to mind. I don't know why I was leaving this name out, and I do apologize. But that is Demetrius Andrade. Demetrius Andrade is a middleweight. He's the WBO middleweight champion of the world. He's undefeated, 28-0 with 17 knockouts. Looked very impressive against his last opponent, Maciej Sulecki. Sulecki has always proven to be a durable opponent, very resilient. Gave Danny Jacobs a tough fight. Danny Jacobs wasn't able to put him away. And so coming into that fight, I knew that Andrade had his hands full and it was going to be a tough fight. I favored him, but I did not believe that Sulecki was going to be an easy opponent to beat. And Andrade looked good in beating him, knocking him down, I want to say maybe once or twice, and won a comfortable unanimous decision victory. And now he's in the prime of his career as well. He's 31 years of age. And this is a name that has also been in the running for that Canelo fight. This is a tough fight for Canelo. And, this is not a bad fight. So you have options outside of Golovkin. Like I said, personally, that's the fight. I feel like I just want that fight to happen next to kind of just close that chapter already in both of their careers. But any of these other fights on any other occasion would be nice, great fights for Canelo. So we'll see what happens, guys, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Give it a like if you enjoyed this content, and remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon to receive notifications on future content, guys. But till next time, I'm out. God bless you, and have a great rest of your day.